Victoria Hayes stood tall on the Army firing range, her posture firm, her breathing steady. The sun beat down on her face, but she didn't flinch. Around her, the sound of rifles cracking filled the air, soldiers aiming and missing. Yet Victoria, just 24, fired shot after shot, and every bullet found its mark. Her weapon was not just a gun, it was an extension of herself. She was calm, almost too calm, her blue eyes locked on the distant targets as if nothing in the world could distract her. Her fellow soldiers began whispering. "How does she do that?" one asked, shaking his head. "She's not even trying," another muttered in disbelief. For them, hitting a bullseye was a challenge. For Victoria, it was second nature. The sergeant, a hardened man with years of experience, watched in silence. He had seen good shooters before, but never like this. "Hayes," he called out. "Step back." Victoria obeyed, lowering her rifle. She stood at attention, disciplined, but inside her heart raced. She knew what they were all thinking, that her accuracy, her unshakable calm, her almost inhuman composure, was not normal. The sergeant studied her carefully. Then, with a voice rough but measured, he asked, "Who taught you how to shoot like that?" The question hung in the air. Soldiers turned their heads, curious, waiting for her answer. Victoria hesitated. Her lips pressed together, her eyes softening. For the first time, she wasn't remembering training manuals or instructors. She wasn't remembering the army at all. She was remembering her grandmother. The firing range melted away in her mind, replaced by a dusty Kansas farm, the smell of cornfields, and the quiet evenings of her childhood. Her grandmother, Ruth Hayes, had been the one who placed the first rifle in her hands when she was just 12. Not for violence, not for war, but for survival. "Steady your hands, Victoria," Ruth would whisper, guiding her small fingers along the trigger. The rifle isn't about anger. It's about focus. It's about knowing who you are. Victoria had grown up in a world where her father was absent, her mother too lost in her own battles to guide her. It was Ruth who became her anchor, stern, wise, unshakable. On that farm, she taught Victoria more than just how to shoot. She taught her resilience, responsibility, and the importance of carrying yourself with dignity. Even when the world tried to break you, that Ruth was not just a grandmother. She was a protector, a mentor, a warrior in her own quiet way. She had lived through the Great Depression, through wars, through heartbreak. Her strength was not in her hands, but in her spirit, and that spirit had been passed down to Victoria. Like an unbreakable flame, back on the firing range, Victoria's voice finally broke the silence. She looked at the sergeant and said softly but firmly, "My grandmother taught me." The sergeant raised an eyebrow. The other soldiers exchanged puzzled glances. They expected her to name a trainer, a military program, maybe even some elite school. Instead, she spoke of her grandmother, a woman they had never met, but one who had left an unshakable mark on the young soldier before them. Victoria didn't explain further. She didn't have to. Deep down, she knew that every bullet she fired, every calm breath she took, was a living testament to Ruth Hayes. Her grandmother's hands were in hers. Her grandmother's voice was in her ear. And though the army would one day know Victoria Hayes as a soldier of rare precision and strength, she knew the truth. She was nothing more, and nothing less, than her grandmother's legacy. The sergeant didn't press further, but in the days that followed, Victoria's name began to circulate. Soldiers talked about her in the mess hall, her name whispered with equal parts respect and unease. Some admired her, others envied her, but none could deny she was different. Her accuracy on the firing range soon carried over to missions. In training simulations, while others hesitated, Victoria stayed composed. She didn't just fire. She calculated, she anticipated, she understood. Night during an overseas operation, her unit came under ambush. Chaos erupted, shouting, gunfire, panic. Soldiers scattered, trying to find cover. But Victoria, breathing steady, remembered her grandmother's words. Focus, child. Fear will blind you, but calm will guide you. She steadied her rifle, her heart beat slow, and took precise shots that turned the tide of the fight. Her calm saved lives. By dawn, her unit survived largely because of her decisions. Yet, when her commanding officer praised her, she simply nodded. She didn't brag. She didn't boast. In her heart, she whispered a quiet thank you to Ruth Hayes, the woman who had prepared her for storms she could not have foreseen. But war leaves scars. Weeks later, Victoria sat alone, staring at her hands, the smell of gunpowder lingering in her memory. She had seen friends fall, heard their last breaths. For the first time, the weight of her gift felt like a curse. Was this really what her grandmother wanted for her? To be a perfect soldier in a broken world. She nearly broke. But then she remembered something else, her grandmother's final lesson spoken in the quiet of a Kansas evening long ago. Victoria's strength isn't just pulling a trigger. It's choosing what you fight for. Never forget, your gift isn't meant for destruction. It's meant to protect. Those words steadied her more than any weapon ever could. From that moment, Victoria fought not for glory, not for recognition, but for the lives beside her, the men and women who depended on her calm when fear consumed them. Months later, she returned home on leave. She walked up the same dirt path she had once walked as a child, back to the farmhouse where Ruth Hayes now sat in a rocking chair, older, weaker, but with the same steel in her eyes. "Grandma," Victoria whispered, kneeling beside her, "they think I'm strong because of how I shoot, but the truth is, it's because of you." Ruth smiled faintly, her weathered hand resting on Victoria's. "No, child, it's because you listened." And in that moment, Victoria Hayes realized her